Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. I hope everybody's having a great day. It's been a long time since I've been in the shop because the summer has been absolutely brutal in the south. It was way too hot to be in my uninsulated shop that had no air conditioning. The shop came with a large storage rack and a really awkward cabinet on the back wall. So I demoed both of those and I built a new cabinet with a torsion box top that would suit my needs. The cabinet has tons of storage. It has 2 large drawers plus doors on the ends of them. It also has 10 narrow drawers going down the middle of the cabinet. Plus it also has 4 trays that are built specifically for a festival sustainer. Now you can build whatever size trays you want to, but I just did them specifically for the sustainer. This cabinet is going to provide me a ton of storage that is much needed. I do have plans available on my website and I will put a link in the description below. This is a bit of a lengthy video, but it's jam-packed with some good building processes and some other cool stuff too. So I hope you enjoy this build as much as I did. So just kick back and relax and enjoy the video. I'm going to start off by breaking down the plywood into more manageable sheets using the cut list I created in SketchUp. This cut list is also included in the plans that is available on my website. Using a circular saw and a straight edge, I cut the sheet in half and then move it to the table saw. At the table saw, I break down all the parts for the cabinet carcass to the final dimension. I have an installation video on the Incra LS positioner. That video also includes how I built the extension tables. Go check it out in the card above. Next, I cut out long strips out of a half sheet of plywood for the stretchers and the back support. These back supports will be used as an attachment point to the studs in the wall. This operation can be a bit tricky. If you're not comfortable with this cut, you can always cut the strips with a circular saw and a straight edge. Next, I again cut the stretchers on the miter saw so they're all one length, which is pretty important if you don't want a wonky cabinet. First pro tip of the day, if you have long pieces of wood you're cutting on a miter saw like this, it's always a good idea to use clamps so they'll prevent it from bowing. The toe kicks are cut out from the bottom fronts of the carcass sides and dividers. Check the plans for the correct dimensions. I'm using a shorter high-tooth blade here to produce a smoother cut. Next, we break out the pocket hole jig to drill pocket holes into each ends of the stretchers. I highly recommend the vacuum attachment for the pocket hole jig. Next, we're going to cut out some notches in the tops of the dividers. This is going to accept the front stretchers. Now it's time to attach the front toe kick stretcher. This is a pretty cool clamping method I stumbled upon. Use a parallel clamp and butt it up against the toe kick. Then use a trigger clamp to flush up the ends by applying pressure on the parallel clamp handle in the back of the stretcher. Then repeat the process for the other side. Now we're going to attach the support for the toe kick. This support is going to hold up the dividers in the middle. I messed up right here and I did not cut this stretcher wide enough, but it is corrected in the plans. Next, we're going to attach the top stretchers and then we're going to attach the back support piece for the dividers. Now we're going to pre-drill and then we're going to screw in the back support so that it adds a lot more strength. Now we're going to add the back support piece for the bottom. Now back over to the pocket hole jig, we are going to drill pocket holes into the bottom corners of each divider. However, I did not get video of actually installing the dividers because the video became corrupt. Next, we are going to fasten the cabinet to the wall with 3-inch cabinet screws. By the way, I'm using the new Milwaukee installation drill. This thing is absolutely incredible and is my new favorite drill. Now we're going to start building the torsion box. The box is actually assembled upside down. First step is to fasten the front and back stretchers. Use clamps to make sure that the long stretchers will stay in place. Then add one end cap stretcher. Next, add the middle stretchers using spacers that are cut to length. Then add the short stretchers with spacers. After you install each short stretcher, go ahead and use some crown staples to fasten the ends to the front stretcher. Now install the last end cap. Go check out King's Fine Woodworking Assembly Table build, where James explains this process in depth. Click on the card above. Now install the middle ribs using another spacer. This will make the torsion box incredibly strong and flat. Just one thing to remember, make sure all the stretchers and ribs are cut to the same width. Here's another pro tip. If you have one of the middle stretchers that's starting to bow and get squirrely on you, use a trigger clamp and straighten it out. Next, add an ample amount of glue to all the tops of the web. Now we're going to cut the bottom to width. This is something I've been practicing, getting a freehand straight cut with a circular saw. Next, we are going to put the bottom into place, and then we're going to tap it so it's flush on both sides. Next, use a crap ton of crown staples to nail down the bottom into place. Next, we're going to flip over the whole torsion box assembly and square it up to the sides of the carcass. Now we are going to attach the torsion box to the cabinet carcass using pocket hole screws into the top stretchers of the carcass. I actually don't mind sanding anymore with my new toy. Sand the whole top of the cabinet to 220 grit. Make sure you sand the sides too. Now we're going to add some poplar trim to hide all the plywood edges. Next, we're going to use a flush trim bit to flush up the tops of the trim. Don't do this. That's not what I meant to do. But anyway, I'm going to put a pretty significant round over on the front of this trim. Now I'm going to put another round over on the back trim. Attach the back trim with glue and some brad nails. Also do the same for the side caps. I picked up this trick from Brad Rodriguez at Fix This Build That. He's also the inspiration for this build with his shop cabinet system. Go check out his channel. Measure the opening of your cabinets and then subtract 1 inch. Set your stop block on your miter saw to that measurement. Then take 2 pieces of the stock that is the same width as your drawer parts. Then make the cut. This will give you exact reference measurements for the drawer parts for your fronts and backs. And my camera is taking a ride on the crosscut sled. Now we're just batching out all the parts for the drawers. Also, we're going to batch out the trays as well. Now we're going to cut out the bottoms for all the drawers. Assembly. I'm going to use just glue and crown staples to attach the big drawers. And the only reason why I'm doing this because I was waiting on my pocket screws to come in. I had to order them. So I used the bottom as reference and used 2 parallel clamps to line up the drawers. Then I flush them up and then tack them together. Next, we're going to use some glue and tack on the bottoms. This is going to make a pretty strong drawer as it's going to hold a lot of weight. I assembled the trays the same way. We're also going to tack on the bottoms with some crown staples. The sustainer actually fits really well into these and they snap right into place. And all your drawer parts up to 220. You don't have to go 220, it's not necessary, but I like that smooth finish. Time for your daily Wood Whisperer tip. I recently replaced the top of my assembly table with a torsion box similar to the one we built earlier. Use a flat surface to install the drawer slides. Just flush up the ends of the catches with a reference board and fasten the screws. This will put the catches at a perfect height every time. This footage is a little grainy because my iPhone decided to take the day off. Mark a line 6 inches from the top using a spacer. Then line up a Craig slide jig to the line and clamp it down. Place the slide on the jig and set it back 1/16 of an inch from the front of the cabinet. This will allow a bit of friction to keep the drawers closed. Next, fasten the screws. I use at least 4 screws spaced out evenly on the slides. Then repeat the process on the other side. You will also do the exact same procedure on the other side. Now we'll move on to installing the tray slides. I kind of goofed up right here and didn't measure my sustainer properly, so the spacer you see here is wrong. Had to go back and fix it later, but use a 1/4 inch spacer instead of a 3/8 inch spacer. And then we're going to do the exact same procedure we did on the larger drawers. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch spacer between the sustainer top and the slide for the next drawer up. Just continue that process all the way up to the 4th drawer on the top. Next, we are going to assemble the narrow drawers with pocket holes. Next, we are going to assemble the drawers using the new clamp it corner clips from Rockler. These little guys make assembling drawers so much easier. I believe they're on sale at the moment. I will have a link in the description below. As we did before with the other drawers, we're going to use glue and we're going to tack in the bottoms. I actually made these bottoms a little bit oversized so I can use a flush trim router to flush up the sides. Now we're going to install the drawer slides for the bank of narrow drawers. This is just a lot of rinse and repeat. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch spacer for the bottom and another 1/2 inch spacer between the top of the drawer and the bottom of the next slide. And let's follow that process all the way up. Now we're going to move on to drawer fronts. I got this birch cabinet grade plywood from the Blue Big Box store, which is, if you knew me, it's unheard of. While I'm cutting the drawer fronts, I'm paying close attention to the grain direction. I want the grain direction all to go the same direction for the whole cabinet. Also, for the narrow drawers, I want the same grain direction, but I also want a book match, so I cut them all at the same time out of one piece of plywood. I lay out all the drawer fronts as they were to be installed in the cabinet and sanded them to 220 grit. I was going to lay them out in a checkerboard pattern like this, but the light side was pretty banged up. So I'm going to mark holes and then drill them out into one drawer front, and then I'm going to transfer them to the others. I'm not a big fan of the Craig drawer installation jig, but I find this way is a lot easier. Now on to the Craig cup hinge installation jig. This is my favorite jig from Craig. I was trying to find something around my shop that measured up to 3.5 inches for the toe kick. So I found a spare piece of Kaizen foam, a 1/2 inch and a 3/4 inch piece of plywood strips. So I used that to flush up the door to the cabinet and then installed the hinges. Nailed it. Another pro tip, a framing square is exactly 1/8 inch thick. So I used that to space all the drawer fronts. It worked perfectly. To attach the drawer fronts to the drawers, a pocket hole screw is used directly through the drawer pull holes. Yeah, that grain direction is going to drive me insane. I had to make another drawer front for that. It was driving me insane. Next, we're going to attach the narrow drawer fronts the same methods as we did the larger ones. But this time we're going to use a popsicle stick to space the drawer fronts. Now we're going to attach the drawer fronts permanently from the inside. Also, we're going to attach the drawer pulls. I give this jig a bad rap sometimes, but they're also very handy when installing handles on a door. Now I'm going to make some trim pieces for the tray. I'm going to cut all of these out of one piece of plywood so I can book match and keep the same grain direction. We're going to take the strips and group them together, and then we're going to gang cut them so they're all the same length. I used some trigger clamps to install the trim. These are going to help align the trim in the right spot. We're also going to use the popsicle trick so we can have that 1/8 inch reveal between the trim and the narrow drawers. And finally, we're going to permanently attach the trim to the trays using some pocket screws. Thanks guys for watching. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Just remember that we have plans available on our website. The link is in the description below. So if you like what you see here, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell and you'll get notified every time we release a new video. Thanks guys, take care.